researchers that are preparing to submit a manuscript for publication, as you're preparing to submit grant proposals to some of the major funding agencies, and also even graduate students that are preparing for submitting their theses and dissertations and practicums. This is a good time to use iThenticate to make sure that everything has been cited as you intended, paraphrased well, again, complying with the requirements relating to responsible conduct of research. I've got some big numbers up here on the screen. This is what is contained in the iThenticate database. When you submit a manuscript to be scanned by iThenticate, what it is comparing your work against is more than 42 million journal articles, conference proceedings, and books from leading scientific, technical, and medical publishers, 52 billion current and archived web pages. iThenticate says that they currently crawl about 10 million pages per day, and I think their archive of web content goes back something like 10 years. So that's another comparison that's going to happen. They have content partners such as EBSCO, Gale, Emerald, ProQuest. A lot of those big academic publishers are participating with iThenticate and giving them the digital content that they're publishing in the academic publishing world to add to their database. Just to be aware, it's software, so it isn't capable of evaluating your research the same way that you as the author or researcher could. The similarity report, this third bullet here, it defaults to highlight words that are in quotation marks, and so those might be things that are properly cited. It can't automatically distinguish between cited text and plagiarized text. It doesn't decide whether sources were properly cited or not. I mean, it's not an APA, MLA, ASA, CSA, whatever alphabet soup you want to use, it's not an expert in that. It doesn't catch plagiarized text that is outside of its database, including a lot of prep sources, such as books. It doesn't generally catch paraphrased text if it's been very well paraphrased, but the citation's missing, it might not catch that. Nor does it catch made-up citations or false citations, made-up maps. It doesn't evaluate how well the sources were used or whether they were appropriate for that project. The only file types that are accepted by iThenticate are doc and docx, PDF. Now with PDF, they need to be a born digital PDF. It can't be a scanned PDF unless you have gone through the process of doing the OCR, the optical character recognition. Adobe Acrobat can do that, but there needs to be some text for the database to compare. It can't just use an image. WordPerfect, HTML, plain text, RTF or rich text format, and then some things that I had not even heard of, HWP, OpenOffice, Adobe PostScript. Those are the accepted file types. There is a size limit of 400 pages, and files cannot exceed 40 megabytes or 2 megabytes of raw text. The homepage on your internet browser should be the university library website. Over on the left sidebar, I'm going to scroll down a bit, there is a link for plagiarism library instruction, and then on the flyout menu for plagiarism prevention. And so when you choose those options, and then finally iThenticate is the last option on that menu, if you'll follow along with me to that point, then you get to a landing page, an iThenticate welcome page. I did want to also show you the option here on the right for submit a document. It's going to prompt you for your e-rater username and password. Here is the form where you can upload your document. What happens in this case when you use this form is instead of using your own account to go to the iThenticate website and submit your document, I, as the administrator, will take your document, run it through iThenticate, download that similarity report, and email it back to you. So you'll have a static report that you can then view and work with, and you can re-upload the document as many times as you need to. As I said, we have a virtually unlimited number of documents that we can process through here. Okay, so those of you that wouldn't be using it repeatedly, this might be the option that you'd be using in the future. Yes?
How long does it take once you submit it to get it back? Is it like a day or?
I would say usually within a business day. We say within 3 business days, but the reports come back so quickly that it can usually be even faster than that. iThenticate, when you submit documents to it, they are not added to iThenticate's repository or database, which is correct. Those of you that have used Turnitin, I think the key feature of Turnitin is that there is a repository of student papers that have been added, and so that future students are being compared to the past students that submitted their work there. So that is a big difference between Turnitin and iThenticate. Like I said, they're sister sites, so their databases are very similar, but anything that is uploaded to iThenticate will not be kept in a database. For grant proposals and other things where the security of that research is very important, that's a good selling point for it. iThenticate.com. Just FYI, there is quite a bit of good training information on their website. So they've got some answers to frequently asked questions that are posted here. You can sign up for a demo or walkthrough. And then over under resources, they've got a lot of training videos and manuals and things like that that you can reference later. Once you log into the iThenticate website, what you will see on your dashboard is over on the left, any folders that you've organized. It usually defaults to have My Documents. There's the default folder. And then your reports will show up here in the center. And then over on the right-hand sidebar, that is where you can start uploading and submitting new documents. This one, I've got two percentages that are showing up here. Sometimes, I would say the median on the similarity index percentage is around 17% or so. The percentages can vary significantly depending on the document and what you've been researching. If it's something about the Bill of Rights that's probably been written about for 200 years, then you might see a higher percentage than something incredibly original. Once you click the number that shows up there, this is what the similarity report looks like. Okay, so over on the left-hand side of the website, we've got my original text that I submitted. It is numbered and color-coded with the sources that are listed here on the right. We can see, for example, that the very first part of my document matched something on this source number 14. So I can click that number, and then it's showing me, it matched something from the internet on this mit.edu website. The way that they're organized, the sources on the right, is by the highest match. The highest match for my words was with fpdc.kent.edu. I had a lot of text that matched that particular website. That's why it's numbered as number 1 here. It said 15% of this website matched text in my document. So I can click either here on the left, or excuse me, on my left, and it will just kind of tab through the website over on the right-hand side. And it's showing me where in the context of that kent.edu website my matches appear. The color coding and numbers are nice, because then we can pretty easily look through and say, okay, so source number 2, here's where libraryinstruction.com appeared. What I like about these sources that are listed here, another nice feature, is that iThenticate will try to take you to that original source. Now this one is just on the free web, it's publicly available. So this is a scholarly article from 1995 in a journal called The Reference Librarian. That's a well-known journal in my field. So when I click that, you know, here it's trying to take me again to that original source. So I can look at it and say, okay, did I cite this appropriately? Do I need to re-paraphrase some of that text that was coming up as a match? I do have some parameters up here that I can change, such as whether I want to exclude or include quotes. Now, when I changed that, when I toggle that on or off, the similarity index jumped up even higher. So with that, it's even flagging things that were within quotation marks, whereas before it would have eliminated those. The bibliography function, the software then looks for something like a reference list or a works cited list that it can exclude from the calculation. There's an option to exclude matches that have fewer than a certain word count. Now, you're going to start to dilute the power of the report, so to speak. The more that you use this, especially if you get above, I would say 15 words or so. But that is there as well. If you wanted to take out small matches like 3 words, 5 words, you can do that. I would say that things that are over 50% are, there's probably a problem, I would say. But with that, there isn't a magic number because you could have a 20-page document only have a 5% match, but that 5% match connects to 2 sentences that were exactly from another article or a website. And so the length of the document can skew that percentage quite a bit. Can you change like your text, your original document? You can't from here. However, you, with this, could change your original document and re-upload it. I've seen a few people try and print this report, and it, I think, is a little bit unwieldy. I think it's much easier to look at it on the screen like this and try to work maybe side by side with your original document. These little icons that will show up in the folder. There is a refresh option, so I know how it is in academic writing. Sometimes you're working on these projects for 6 months, a year, 3 years. You don't even remember how long you've been working on this project. I submitted a draft back in September. If I wanted to refresh that now in March, all I have to do is hit the little, looks like a recycle icon there. Trash, we'll just move the report out of your folder into the trash folder. And then here you can edit the document information if you need to. Let's talk about some best practices on iThenticate. Things like running headers and page numbers. When iThenticate looks at that, it just serves to break up the rest of your text, the body of your text. And so I would recommend, before you upload those to iThenticate, that you go ahead and just delete those. Line numbers, that's another thing that I know when you're in the editing process, those line numbers are really helpful. But here, again, it just serves to break up the rest of your text. And so it's, I think, a little bit more efficient to just delete those out before you upload it. Submitting multiple drafts is helpful. If you are, again, working on a project for a while, then 6 months later, you might want to make sure that you haven't added anything or missed anything. There's another viewing mode. This is called the document viewer mode. Previously, we had been looking at it in the text-only report mode, which is down here on the right. The difference here is instead of having just straight text on the left, it's showing up with identical formatting to what was originally submitted. If you upload a document on the library website without your own account, you just submit a document, what I'm going to return to you is the text-only report. So it would just be that static HTML like this. But with your own account, you can view it in the document viewer mode, which you would be able to see exactly how it was formatted on the page.